So you're waiting now for credentials for soccer, right? For the World Cup.
I tell you, I just think this is going to be maybe the biggest Canadian sports story since Vancouver 2010.
Might be.
If a few things go the national team's way. Like I was on the pitch, guys, that cold March Sunday when Canada beat Jamaica. And, you know, the last 10, 15 minutes of the game, it was over. The match was over. And it was a celebration. It was a coronation. They brought some of the former players onto the pitch. You know, there's Craig Forrest in tears. There's John Herdman kind of out of his mind. And that was without Alphonso Davies. And that was CONCACAF against a Jamaican team that didn't want to be there. If this team makes a little bit of a splash in the group stage and gets through, you just get the sense this is just going to be a bit of an avalanche that people are just going to jump on. And it's I don't know what the turbo version of a bandwagon is, but I think it could very well be that.
Well, and for me, the fascination is that it's at such an interesting time of year. When you think about it, we're not used to having the Grey Cup, but I think that's a little different because they've played since the middle of June, but to have this type of thing in December and the championship and if they get to the second round, they're in, the 8th or 9th or 10th of December. That time of year is something that there's a lot of people inside, a lot of people want to watch. You're not outside playing golf or in the backyard.
And stamp that maple leaf on something. And the fact that they haven't been there since 1986. It's funny too, because with the World Cup, it just feels, without Canada in it, people are into it. It's the summer, it's outside, all that kind of stuff. But John, you mentioned it. People are probably going to be indoors. There's something about it every 4 years where everybody, there are so many sports fans that get invested into it. Mm-hmm. And because we are a country of immigrants, there are so many people rooting for perhaps, nations that they have an attachment to, or if you're a soccer fan, players that you have an attachment to. And I just think that Canada has scratched the surface on the men's side of what this thing can be. And it's got the potential to be massive.
Well, we keep our fingers crossed that
they got to score a goal first.
Well,
right.
Yeah, that the opposite doesn't happen, that they're a little overwhelmed by this, that the opposition maybe is a bit above them. We don't know that for sure.
But don't you, Bob, don't you think now that with the players on this team that have played in pressure matches all over the world and not for Canada, but for their own club teams in Europe, isn't that the different complexion of this team now, Arash?
I mean, Davies has lifted a Champions League trophy for Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
Eustáquio with Porto this week is out there playing big minutes, scoring a goal. Jonathan, I don't think that the proverbial quote unquote bright lights are really going to affect a core group of this team. Now, I think there's a secondary group that is that could get intimidated by the moment, and they're getting this team together quickly, like every other country, because of time of year to kind of come together. But there are some dudes who've been through big moments already in their career, which is a huge, huge advantage for Canada.
What's the significance of the fact that this championship is essentially being played in mid-season, which doesn't happen very often, I guess?
Yeah, I think the biggest part of that, Bob, is that it's such a compressed period of time for a team to come together and try and develop chemistry and do it. It's almost as if you're getting ready for the NFL playoffs without a regular season and just a condensed training camp and a couple of preseason games.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest challenge here. And it's not just Canada, but there are, of course, a bunch of teams globally who've got a rapport and have done this together. So that's why part of the qualifying was so important. They know their systems, they have all of that down, but it's going to be a matter of, stop if you've heard this before, get in, well, Canada has, get healthy, you hope they're going to be, get hot, and just make, have it all come together. The Cincinnati Bengals blueprint from last January, if you will.
So being in Qatar, now is it Qatar or Qatar? Just so that we
depends on who you ask.
Oh, okay.
And yeah.
Okay. You've always been a great reporter and a guy that digs deeper. How much will politics get in the way of the soccer?
It's a really interesting question, John. I think it's going to be a significant topic through the lead up to the World Cup and probably for the first week or so. This is my guess.
Yeah.
I think by the time the quarterfinal rolls around, the semis, the final, I think the second half of the tournament itself will take center stage. But between the migrant workers, between the corruption with FIFA, between the human rights violations, all of that is
women's rights,
on and on we can go. And I think that's going to be a massive storyline, especially with media outlets who come in there from non-sports entities, who, knowing that the world is watching, want to highlight the atrocities that have gone on.